Here I am, climbing up, feeling great, getting love. Here I go, risk it all, be worth it now, and that's for sure. Watch me as I rock it team.
All right, episode 31 of Fight Talk Down Under is brought to you by CMBT Nutrition. Go to cmbt.com.au for all your protein powders, protein bars, pre-workout, all that good stuff. So go to cmbt.com.au, use the promo code Justin for 10% off at the checkout. That's cmbt.com.au, promo code Justin. We're also brought to you by Nutcare, and the fact is that 83% of penile injuries involve a razor. It doesn't have to be this way, guys. Bare Nuts hair removal cream is specifically formulated for sensitive areas such as your nuts. So go to nutcare.com.au, use the promo code FIGHTNEWS for 10% off at the checkout. That's nutcare.com.au, promo code FIGHTNEWS. All right, now welcome everyone. I'm Dan from Fight News Australia, of course, and my co-host is with me once again, of course, Lockjaw Justin Van Heerden, who's fighting Diego Pereira for the vacant Eternal Featherweight title at Eternal 72 on December 2nd. Justin, how are you?
Yeah, doing good. Obviously, yeah, it's all happening. We're pretty much, I think, like 8 weeks out now, some shit. So, yeah, we're going to get stuck in now, do the hard work, get ready. But obviously, being a freestyle, there's always something happening. So I think at the moment, Dave Martinez is down here doing some work with us. I believe from tomorrow, there'll be a couple other usual suspects coming down. There'll be like Josh Kuhn will be here, I think. Brenton Mumford will be here. So, yeah, it's all happening. We've got a lot of bodies coming through, a lot of people coming through. So it's good. And then what else was I have on my mind? Oh, yeah, no, real quick. 3 of my teammates are fighting this weekend in Sydney on Silverback Fight Series. And one of the boys, Mitch Harmo, he's fighting for a welterweight amateur title. So, yeah, it should be good. If he wins that one, I think he'll be 5-0 as an amateur. So probably looking at going like maybe 1 or 2 more and then maybe pro next year. So, yeah, be a good one for the boys. So I'm keen to sort of see them do work, but then, yeah, keen to just get the prep done for me. And obviously, yeah, everyone else has got stuff happening. Obviously, Volk's the backup for the massive title fight in Abu Dhabi. So, yeah, obviously don't want to see anything happen to either of those two guys, but if they want to trip over a power cord or some shit, I'm not gonna mind that.
Yeah, it's got the number one pound for pound fighter in the world waiting in the wings there. So, yeah, that'd be pretty cool if he could step in.
Isn't that such a spun out thing to think of? The guy who's number one pound for pound is just like a reserve waiting to fight.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate alternate, isn't it?
Yeah, because you imagine that. Like, imagine if they didn't tell you who the alternate was, and like Charles and Islam were just kind of like there, or you're just there waiting, and then like you find out your opponent's out, and they're like, and coming in to replace him is the best guy in the world, and you're like, ah.
Yeah, mad. They just do like a full WWE style entrance. It's like when they introduce a new member of the NWO or something. Everything goes quiet and then the music hits. That'd be pretty cool.
I reckon they should do that. They should have like surprise matchups where you don't know. You just know like one of the people, and then they just pop up. But hey, if we're running that company, I think we could bust out some stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't know if that's really Dana White's jam, but yeah, one day.
One day.
Silverback Fighting Championship, is it?
Yes, I believe it's taking place on the 15th of October in northern Sydney. I think it's run by, I definitely know that Brian Ebersol's involved. I don't know if he's just doing the matchmaking. But yeah, when you got people like that involved, you always know that, they're going to try and do their best to sort of have stuff competitively matched and run well and have like everyone's sort of best interest looked at. So I believe it's pretty well a full amateur card. Maybe the main event's pro. Obviously, yeah. I think either or, whatever the outcome is, whatever sort of the setup is. But I think it's cool that there's another thing for some of these amateurs to get in and fight on.
There you go. That one slipped under the radar. I didn't have no idea that was even on. So there you go.
Like I knew the boys were fighting, but in my head for some reason I just thought it was like on one of the usual shows like Super Fight or some shit. So I wasn't even like thinking about what show they were fighting on. I just knew they were fighting because I've been like in the gym, but like at a smaller capacity than usual up until, last week. So, and then, yeah, obviously found out they're fighting on some show called Silverback and I was like, oh, cool. Well, there you go.
There you go. Another one to add to the mix. And of course, we've got a fair bit to cover off this week. We've got, they're going to be going up against Beatdown Promotions, which is on this weekend as well on the same day. So, we'll be covering off the fights there. And there's a fair bit happening in the boxing world. We've got Haney versus Cambosis too. And then Matchroom Boxing's making their Australian debut as well. So we'll cover all that off as well as, all the usual fun and frivolity, fan questions, all that sort of stuff. So we'll start off with Beatdown Promotions. They're obviously on the 15th as well, which is, what's that? Is that that's Saturday?
Saturday, yeah.
Yep. So the obviously the main event, Matt Vale versus Will Chope. It's kind of a fun one. Obviously Matt Vale's a highly sort of touted guy on the local scene, and Will Chope's a guy who's had numerous fights in his career. He's got a 39-18 record in MMA, and he's obviously had a ton of fights in Muay Thai. He's even fought Letway over the years. So he's got an experienced. Matt Vale's got an experienced opponent on his hands. So what do you make of that one?
Yeah, it's like on paper, it sounds like it'll be a dope fight, and like obviously both guys are pretty experienced, and yeah, it's a weird one. It's not the fight that I was expecting to see for Matt Vale, but it's a good sort of job by Beatdown and by Damian Brown and that to sort of throw something together for the guy so he can get a matchup in, because obviously I feel like he thinks he's on the doorstep of some bigger things. So to get a matchup like that, you're fighting someone, of Will's caliber, it's going to be cool to see how it plays out. But I just think Matt Vale's going to go out there and do what he does and secure a win. I think it'd be, if I was to put money on something, tell people if they want to bet on it or whatever, go unanimous decision to Matt Vale. I think he's just going to do what he does and just grind out a win.
Yeah, it definitely feels like he's the favourite there, but I think he was originally supposed to fight Hoshi Friedrich, right?
Yes, I believe so. I think initially he was meant to fight someone different, and then Hoshi stepped in, and then now he's fighting Will. So yeah, it's all a bit confusing, but as long as Matt Vale gets a fight, I suppose that's a good thing. So, and obviously, it's still going to be like a reasonably tough test for him, but I just think he's just going to do what he does.
Yeah, it definitely looks that way. And obviously the co-main event is Elliot Compton, making his second walk to the MMA cage. This time he's taking on Kieran Joblin, who's a highly experienced opponent as well, with 37 fights on his record. So, it's like, I guess Elliot Compton's not fucking around, is he? He's, in his second fight, he's taking on an experienced guy. We know he's had a ton of fights in Muay Thai and kickboxing and those sorts of things, so he's no stranger to a punch on. But in terms of his MMA career, he's, he's not holding back. So yeah, what do you make of his chances there?
It's a tough fight to take for your second fight, and obviously props to him for doing that, because Kieran Joblin's a fucking beast, man. I fought on a couple of cards with him when I was an amateur, and he fought on like a couple of his undercards, and the dude's a beast, and he's fought like everyone. The dude's fought everyone. So like you said, he's got like over 30 fights. He's just he's been around, and obviously trains at City Kickboxing now. Before that, he was based at a different sort of place, but now he's been at City Kickboxing for a hot minute now. The guy's super experienced, super talented, pretty well rounded. So it's a tough fight for Elliot to take, but they're obviously confident with what they're doing, and obviously Elliot's stand up ability is going to be always be there. I do think he's been training in jiu-jitsu and wrestling and stuff like that on and off. Obviously. It's obviously been something that he's done and worked on a bit, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he sort of copes with when Joblin starts mixing it up. Joblin, and especially coming from that City Kickboxing base, Joblin's not going to just be walking forward in straight lines and I go, you go, I go, you go. He's going to be mixing up the angles. His footwork's going to be on point. His distance is going to be on point. And I've seen him, like what he's able to do when he does get a hold of people and grinds them out against the cage. So. It's a tough matchup for Elliot. I like both guys, but I got to go with Joblin. I got a bit of history. That guy is a nice dude. Quite like him. Another dad just out here doing his thing. So I think Joblin's going to go out there and probably, for my money, win by submission inside the distance.
Yeah, right. And obviously Elliot's a dad as well, so it's a bit of a dad fight there. So we love love the family men.
I want to see the dads with the violence.
Yeah, it's violent dads. But Elliot actually holds a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. I found that out, in my interview with him. can see how can see how impressed you are with that. I was going to say, obviously, MMA grappling is sort of a different game to sort of gi jiu-jitsu and that sort of thing. But we haven't seen him tested in the MMA cage before, so I guess Joblin will certainly put that brown belt to the test.
Look, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. He's if he's got a brown belt under Steve Compton, then it's probably given to him for legitimate reasons. And he's obviously doing some grappling work with like Dom Marfin, Aaron Blackie, people like that. So I imagine he's getting some decent work in. But like, I don't know. As you said, it's not jiu-jitsu. It's fucking MMA and MMA grappling. So I'm sure he's going to be at like an adequate level. But is that going to be something that translates to someone who's 37 fights into their MMA career and who's been doing MMA grappling and mixing it up as a whole from the get-go, because obviously when Elliot was still fighting, like in his time in one championship and his time before that, he wasn't doing any MMA. It was all stand-up shit. So I can't imagine you were sitting there doing like any MMA work, any cage work or anything like that in that time. Maybe a little bit here and there just to help some of your teammates or mix it up a little bit. Honestly, I know he had a relationship with some of the guys from Integrated back in the day before things fizzled and like stopped. I can't, from what I know, that doesn't gel anymore. Or that's like a thing. But so obviously he's been around MMA for a bit, but I just don't think it's not the same thing. It's like it'd be like me that'd be like me thinking that my stand-ups like it's good enough that I can just fucking kickbox him, like, just straight Muay Thai. We're going to fight Muay Thai or kickboxing. And I'm just going to be able to go out there and, match him punch for punch, kick for kick, elbow for elbow, knee for knee. It's just not realistic.
Yeah, I guess like you're sort of getting out there. They're different sports with transferable skills, so you probably can't expect it to translate straight away. But that's the big question with this fight. Like
it's a good level test fight
on the ground. Absolutely, yeah. So it's going to be it'll be a fun one to watch for sure. And of course your teammate or sometime teammate Michael Stanoff is back in action for his fourth pro fight. He's taking on Jaden Binney, who's making his pro debut after 6 fights in the amateurs. So, obviously Stanoff's not mucking around. He was just in the cage recently. Was it in Eternal or Hex?
Eternal.
Eternal. It was Eternal.
Yeah, Eternal 72.
Yeah.
70, sorry, not 72. I'm fighting on 72, 70.
Yep, that's the one. Yeah, Eternal 70. So, he's back in the cage again this weekend against Jaden Binney. So, what do you make of his chances this weekend?
I gotta go Stanoff. Obviously, he's my guy, so I gotta pick him. I think he's gonna go out there and get another finish and do work. Obviously, Binney's got some experience behind him with a couple of amateur fights and cunt's been grappling for like a hot minute. I think Colby was telling me he versed him in jiu-jitsu like at Pan Packs or some shit like way back in the day. So obviously the dude's been like around. But I just think Stanoff's too big, too strong, too explosive, and I think eventually, whether it's on the feet, if he's going to land a few shots, he's going to be able to hurt him. If they get into the clinch or the grapple, I think Stanoff's just going to be too strong. It's just going to, it's just going to be a sort of just repeat of his last performance. Obviously, the kind of thing with Michael, unfortunately, at the moment is like he's had a few issues with weight things, and obviously the situation's been a bit rough for him because it's been like fights are here, then they're not, then he doesn't know if he's fighting in one weight class or upper weight class or down a weight because he's just caught him in limbo. Still though, obviously people they've been kind of getting on him about that because he's missed weight a couple of times, but I spoke to him, everything's tracking nicely and moving on point. So once he I think for him he's gonna go, if he sort of needs to go out there, obviously make weight and then just do what he does inside the cage and then, kind of shut everyone up and just kind of move forward. But, dude's not fucking around, man. He's trying to get the fights in and do his thing. While we're on the topic of weight misses and fucking shit like that, obviously at his last fight at Eternal, we had like that sort of happen and it was a bit of an issue, and he was fighting Kobe Porter from Integrated, whose head coach is Adrian Pang. As you know, I like to call things out and say things as I may. So it got like brought to my attention that, you know, Adrian thought it was a cool idea to sort of go into the change rooms after the fight with like a bunch of people and, you know, carry on like an idiot a bit, you know, carry on about the weight thing and like, you know, which is fine. Like, you're right to be upset that your fighter's opponent didn't make weight and blah blah blah. But if you accept the fight, the fight goes ahead. That's kind of got to go out the window, whether you win or lose. That's got to go out the window. You made the choice to fight. So Adrian doing that is just kind of sad, really, in my opinion. And yeah, people like that generally. If you're going to be in a situation where you're going to go and try clown someone with a group of people around you when they're just sort of by themselves trying to like find out, you know, get themselves back to neutral and like kind of just gather themselves after a fight, you're a bit of a fuckwit, in my opinion. And, you know, getting punched in the head 50,000 times in your career isn't an excuse. Like, you should know better. Set an example for the people that you have, you know, that are under you, that are following you, that are training with you and stuff like that. Fair enough. They, you know, part of the sport's making weight, didn't happen, but you as a coach and your fighter chose to fight and continue to fight. So that kind of, you got to let that go, you know, because if you win, it's not like you would have turned around and gone, oh yeah, fucking, I killed it, but also he didn't make weight, so, you know, I killed it. I mean, you wouldn't have said anything. You would have just gone, oh, we won, cool, whatever. Good luck to old mate in the future. So yeah, I think that's a bit silly. So Adrian, pull your fucking head in. Don't do shit like that. It's just silly.
There you go. It's been a little while since we've had a proper spray on the on the podcast, so that's good. There you go. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like some pretty, I guess, unprofessional behaviour. Yeah, if the stories are to be believed there. So yeah, that's the way it goes. And you know,
what makes it just to sort of add to that a little bit, you know, like Michael in the cage after he won didn't go and like be a fuckwit and be like, yeah, I fucking killed it, blah blah. Like, he was pretty, you know, apologetic about the weight miss. He kind of acknowledged that and was kind of like, okay, he didn't clown old mate. He didn't fucking say anything. He wasn't a fuckwit about it. He was like, look, I need to make weight. It's part of the sport. I messed up, blah, blah, you know, as you should. So fucking, yeah, that just makes it worse that sort of was the follow-up from that.
Yeah, well, and I guess you know, from Stanoff's point of view, I guess the pressure's on to kind of make weight this time, isn't it? Because you don't really want to sort of, I guess, you know, end up with a reputation for, you know, being a liability or being, you know, someone who sort of, you know, can't be relied upon to make weight. So yeah, I guess he's kind of got to make the weight this weekend. And that's probably his first battle before he even gets to the cage. But sounds like everything's on track. Is he down at freestyle this time around? Does he sort of come and go? Or
yeah, he kind of he kind of comes in. So obviously, you know, he's come down for a couple of box camps now, and he's been, you know, he came in. He came in obviously when we were getting ready for Eternal, and he was just trying to get a fight. He was meant to be fighting on Super Fight, but, you know, couldn't get matchups. So he was with us doing some training and doing pretty much part of his camp. And then when they ended up getting him the fight on Eternal, he decided to just stay down here and do work with us. And I think because Super Fight was the same night, so Luke couldn't be at Eternal and run Super Fight. So Joe and Alex ended up cornering him and stuff like that, and it worked out like that. But yeah, he sort of comes in when he can and stuff like that. But he's done the bulk of his work for this one, you know, at Lions Den with his team under Luke and that. So yeah, he'll have his usual sort of team and corner and that with him. So I'm sure things are going to run like clockwork, and he's just going to do his thing. So I'm excited.
Absolutely, yeah. Looking forward to Beatdown this weekend. But obviously, yeah, like we mentioned off the top, it's a you know, big week in the boxing world here in Australia. Obviously, you know, as we mentioned, also Matchroom Boxing's making their Australian debut, and it's you know, it's a solid card. You know, they've put together a pretty stacked card to sort of open up proceedings, and we don't really know if it's going to be sort of a regular arrangement from them, but it's pretty cool that a big promoter like them is sort of you know, pushing onto Australian shores. So obviously the main event, we'll go straight into the main event. It's Liam Paro versus Brock Jarvis. It's you know, it's a brilliant matchup on paper, really. Like, it's one of those ones that we don't really see that often in boxing. You know, a lot of guys will sort of build up their records, and you don't often see like a couple of undefeated prospects, like Liam Paro's 22-0, Brock Jarvis is 17-0. We don't often see that undefeated prospects fighting each other at this point without a world title on the line. You know, most of the time they'll kind of wait to sort of, I guess, risk their undefeated record until there's some chocolates on the line. But this time they've got the WBO Global Super Lightweight title. Don't really know what the fuck a WBO Global title is, but I assume that entitles them to a place in the top 15. But it sounds like a world title, really. I mean, is the globe and the world, is that kind of the same thing? I don't know. Not really sure, but anyway, that's not really what we're here to discuss. But it's a cool matchup. One thing I did want to sort of point out in my I've got it in my notes here, is that Brock Jarvis, we know that he's trained by Jeff Fennick, so obviously he's got some high level experience in his corner there. It's that's a pretty cool thing to have. But he has been stepping up in weight, and that's probably the big question mark for me. Before you sort of get into your analysis, looking down Brock's record. He's stepped up 5 weight classes in his last, I think, 6 or 7 fights. 4 weight classes in his last 4 fights. So he's like, obviously he's only 24, I think. So he's obviously still filling out. But there's alarm bells for me when someone's stepping up to fight an undefeated fighter and a quality fighter like Liam Paro, when he's sort of stepping up a weight class once again, having stepped up in his last few fights as well. So be interesting to see how he goes. Again, with a step up in competition and step up in weight class. So yeah, what do you make of all that?
Fuck. So first off, obviously, yeah, he's a young dude. He's still sort of filling out, but is he filling out with just like good nutrition or like asinine? Jesus, like what are we talking about?
High protein diet.
That's pretty crazy. Fucking Manny Pacquiao shit going on. But it's crazy that they're sort of throwing this fight together. But like, it's not the first time that Liam's done this. He's fought I think twice before, where he's gone up against another sort of a person who's undefeated, and like a fight that you'd normally be seeing for like a world title or something like that. So yeah. He's obviously doesn't mind taking a bit of risk and getting in there and fucking, testing himself. He's very confident. He's a very confident young guy. Duke can box, man. He's southpaw, and he's very good. He's very fast, packs some power, and his footwork's amazing. So, yeah, he's got all the skills. Brock's obviously, a talented fighter in his own right. Take the stepping up of weight classes out of the equation and stuff like that. The dude's been doing work, and, he's obviously trained by a legend in Australian boxing. So on paper, it's a crazy fight, and it's got the potential to be just an absolute mental fight. But I don't know. I think the size advantage, the size advantage, the speed advantage, the power advantage, and the all-round just boxing fight IQ is going to go to Paro. But, I just think, it's going to be hard for me to sort of see anyone in Australia or that he's going to fight in this region that's going to give him some problems. I think his tough fights are overseas and, sort of in the US, UK type deal. And obviously, being that he's involved with Matchroom, I think, they know that. So Eddie Hearn's not just going to he's going to get him to that point and to those fights when he, feels he's absolutely ready and it makes sense and it makes money and makes sense. It's obviously, that's his job. It's his job to do that. So, yeah, I think this is a good matchup for this time in his career, and I think it's a good opportunity for him to sort of take a step forward and cement himself in his weight class and sort of, get towards that, a bit closer towards that world title, which I think inevitably he will fight for and he'll probably win.
Definitely. Liam Paro is a guy who sort of feels like he's ready to launch, and I think that's probably, I kind of just kind of ragged on Brock a little bit there, but I rate him highly as a prospect. I think he's a fantastic prospect, really talented fighter, really tough guy. But it feels to me like if you're a betting man, you're betting on this fight. For me, it feels like just Liam's just a little bit more advanced at this point, and obviously there's the question mark on sort of the moving up a weight class as well. So if I was a betting man, I'd be probably betting on Liam on this one. But you know Liam personally, is that right?
Yeah. So we obviously when I first moved to Australia, I was living in Mackay, North Queensland, and his family's from Townsville, but he was also like sort of based in Mackay in that sort of region as well. So yeah, and we got a bunch of mutual friends and stuff like that. So, and he was in, before he sort of been going back and forth between like the US and all that. Now he was based in Brisbane. So I was previously based in Brisbane. So both kind of just doing our thing, both ended up in the same spot, briefly doing our thing. So, he's just someone that I've got a sort of friendship and relationship with, and just another dude that I'm just happy seeing pursue his sort of combat sport, and he's just fucking killing it. So yeah, it's sort of inspirational too, because you got like, even though it's boxing, I can look at the stuff that he's doing and kind of just go, all right, cool. Just stick to the course, do the work, and everything's just going to fall how it should.
It's definitely the same pathway, like a similar pathway in that you do the work and you can reap the rewards. And, if you guys have sort of come from sort of similar beginnings in a way, then, you can definitely plot your own path that way. So, yeah, it's cool that you can sort of look to him for inspiration as well. And he can probably do the opposite when you're, taking that eternal featherweight title.
Exactly. I'm fighting for an Australian title, not a global WBO Oceanic, whatever the fuck belt, but that's it. We're here.
It's not a global title, but maybe that can be next for you. Go and get some sort of global title.
Oh, you know what, Dan? I think you might be right. Maybe after this fight, I can go fight on some weird fucking promotion overseas and fight for a world title over 3 rounds against some dude who fought in a big promotion one time and then called myself a world champion.
Could do that. Yeah, maybe that's the move. Get that world title. Or whatever. But also, you'd be hard pressed to find a boxing fight that doesn't actually have some sort of title on the line, to be honest.
True.
So pretty much all the fights on this card have got a title. Obviously, the co-main event, Sky Nicholson's back in the ring. It's been a long layoff for her. I think it's been something like 3 months. So that's she must have itchy knuckles at this point. I think she banged out her first 4 fights in inside 3 months the first time around. So she's taking on Christina Jacobs, who's another Australian. She's have I got some notes there? Oh, yep, here we go. So she's she's mostly fought fighters around the same sort of experience level. She's got a 6-3 record. This one's for the Commonwealth featherweight title. So another a chance at a title for Sky, and she's sort of slowly kind of building up in her 5th pro fight. So how do you view it?
Yeah, it's the same sort of thing. Like, obviously they're gonna be smart with what they're doing with her and how they're sort of getting her to where they want to get her to, which is obviously a world title as well. But yeah, she's a beast, man. Like, she's actually killing it. She's my hero. There's she's fucking just fighting everyone all the time and just staying busy, which I love shit like that. I like fighters who do that, or just about their business. So obviously, man, you got to look at the fights and it's a bit different. It's like in MMA, right? You can break down fights and go, okay, there's obviously going to be and sometimes there's going to be a clear favorite, clear underdog, and you're going to make your predictions and you're going to sort of analyze it. But there's a lot more variables in MMA, whereas boxing, it's just it's 2 weapons. And sometimes it's when you have someone who's a clear favorite and someone who's an underdog, it's just that. It's like this person is just going to bash that person. That's just how it is. And this is one of those fights. I think Sky's just going to go out there and put hands on and throw combinations together and, just go do work and get another win and get herself a belt, a pro title. And we're going to be talking about what's next for her.
Yeah, I think she's obviously being sort of handled by Matchroom as well. So I imagine they'd be sort of matching her up in a way to sort of build her up to something big. So, while it looks like it's a more experienced opponent this time around, I don't know that they would be matching her with anyone that's going to sort of give her too much trouble. I don't think at this point, without sort of sort of being too disrespectful. But I think they're building her up. She's sort of their baby in a way. So it'll be interesting to see how she goes though. And like when a young fighter like that in her 5th pro fight, it's fun to sort of watch their progression and see what she's managed to build on, because she's actually probably been able to train properly for this one. She's just been banging out fights earlier in the year, so she's probably had a bit of a fight camp to sort of try and apply some of those lessons from her first 4 fights. So that's kind of the fun part of this matchup, I think. But also on the card, we've got Dempsey McKean. He's another undefeated prospect, a heavyweight prospect this time. He's taking on Patrick Corte. It's not Patrick Cote, the former UFC middleweight title challenger. It's Patrick Corte, who's a German fighter. He's 38 years old. He's a guy who's got a 18-1-1 record. But he's fought exclusively in Germany. He hasn't sort of fought world-class opponents. Just looking down his record there. So there's always alarm bells, right? When you got like a 38-year-old guy who's sort of relatively untested, in boxing. Again, Dempsey McKean's a guy who's being sort of handled as well by the Matchroom team there. So, yeah, potentially this could be another stepping stone for him towards bigger and better things. What do you reckon?
Yeah, Dempsey's going to knock this dude out real quick. He's a southpaw heavyweight that can box, so he's going to like put hands on this bloke and knock him out. He's fighting some German granddad. It's a rough. It's a rough one, but yeah, Dempsey's obviously been training a fair bit in England. He's back for 3 weeks for this to be here for this fight and that. He's been getting some good quality rounds in with like Anthony Joshua, people like that, of like a world-class caliber sort of opponents and that. I think, to be honest, he should have been fighting Lucas Brown on this card, and he's asked for that fight repeatedly in the past, but just never came to fruition. And then after we saw Lucas murder that other bloke not too long ago, I thought for sure they're going to make that happen. But yeah, instead we're just getting him having like a glorified sparring session against some German bloke. But Dempsey's he's a nice guy. He was based on the Gold Coast previously, trained out of Matrix alongside like Jacob NG, So he's just kind of like, done the little move overseas and been doing work. So I'm keen to see what he brings to the table. And, he's just another guy that we're seeing get built up and that's doing some good work in representing Australian boxing.
And Lucas Brown was actually booked to fight Daniel Dubois instead. So that was sort of like a big ticket fight for him. The fight got cancelled as the commission scuppered it on account of Lucas's age. Which is probably a bit rough. He's 43 years old. Okay, so obviously the commissions are going to have questions. He's fighting a guy like Dubois, who's, it's
14.
It's a tough matchup. Let's put it that way. It's a tough matchup. But so obviously the commission's going to have questions. But Lucas has had a couple of good wins. We saw him get stopped by Paul Gallen, which is probably a bit of a. Yeah, that's a bit of a blight on the record, but he's beaten a couple of decent fighters. Since then, Junior Farr is a good one, and Django Opelu was another one. So, he stopped both of those guys. So, he's found some form. So, you would have thought that the commission might have allowed it. They've allowed crazier things to happen, but it hasn't gone ahead. But I think that's the reason why he didn't end up fighting Dempsey McKean this time. But yeah, I guess like Dempsey McKean though. Yeah, like you say, tall guy, sort of good power. Where do you see him sort of fitting into the on a world scale? Like where's 32 years old? What do you think his potential is at heavyweight?
See, well, heavyweight's obviously a bit different. You got a guy. You can fight for a fucking hot minute at heavyweight. He's 32. I still think he's got like a decent amount of time ahead of him in the sport. And if they keep building him up the way that they're doing, and he's being handled by Matchroom and it's going to be interesting. And he's obviously he's based in England now and he's training along some top level heavyweights, so yeah. And, the way he sort of fights, and obviously he's a heavyweight, all heavyweights have power, but he's got power, but, being a southpaw that plays a sort of into his favor a fair bit, especially at heavyweight. And he doesn't really move like a conventional heavyweight either, which is all things that sort of factor in. Do I see him beating someone at this stage in his career at 32? Do I see him beating people like Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder? Well, no, but, it's because he's building himself up to get there. And I think if he keeps doing what he's doing and they do it the right way, he can get to the point where he could be fighting guys like that. And, for sure he's going to be able to beat guys like that. So I'm not expecting them to launch him into the stratosphere right now and then start getting him fights like that, but slowly sort of build him up, and then we could be seeing that. We could be seeing Dempsey fight guys like Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, etc., etc.
Yeah, spot on there. 32 is relatively young for a heavyweight. He's probably just coming into his prime, really, as far as heavyweights go. So, yeah, let's see what he comes up with. But this fight, of course, is for the IBF Intercontinental Heavyweight title. So,
what?
Yeah, I don't really know. That bothers me a little bit, actually. I don't really know what an intercontinental title is. Even in the WWE days, what is it? What is an intercontinental title?
I was about to say that. That is some WWE shit right there. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, but I think I assume most of these regional. It's not even a regional title though. Intercontinental. I don't know. Don't really know what. But I assume that entitles them to a top 15 ranking, right? Normally, if you get a Oceania title or a some sort of regional title, then that normally permits you into the top 15 ranking, which then sort of puts you in striking distance of a world title fight, right? You have to be in the top 15 to fight for a world title. So I assume the Intercontinental title is the same. I don't know, but that's sort of that's sort of what's on the line, I guess, for Dempsey McKean and Patrick Corte, a top 15 ranking.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does
Maybe
it
I
though?
should maybe I should get Cam to do that. Maybe make this an Australian Intercontinental title, and then I'm automatically top 15 in a big promotion.
Yeah, that works. Yeah. Maybe I should just make an intercontinental title or an interstate title or something like that, just for shits and gigs, just for, secondary title for, I don't know, Diego and Alan to fight for or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you got to fight for that first before you can fight for the actual belt.
Yeah. Anyway, so also on the card, Matteo Tapia versus Abdul Mayweather. It's another couple of undefeated fighters there. This is for the WA Oceania super middleweight title. Now, I believe these Oceania titles do permit you a top 15 ranking. So
Yeah.
I think we can confirm that tonight. But Tapia versus Mayweather, a couple of big super middleweights. Again, undefeated. Tapia's 14-0, Mayweather's 7-0. He's got some some raps on him as well. He's got some power. So yeah, how do you view that one?
I think Mayweather should get it done inside the distance. Yeah, he's got some power, and that dude can box, man. So I've got to see him do some work up close with my own eyes. So he's a talented dude. So I think it's obviously a good fight. They've done well the match just one together, but I feel like he's just going to get this. He's going to get the stoppage. He's going to find an opening. He's going to put some hard power shots out, and we're going to see a finish for sure inside the distance. I don't see it going to a decision.
Yeah, and you saw him up close, like in the gym, or just
I've seen him just working. Just like doing some stuff like while I was still based in Queensland. I've seen him sort of doing some sparring, doing some mitt work and stuff like that. And it's just like you can just tell the dude's like got some pop when those punches are landing. It's like fuck, all right, you're gonna get hurt. So I think he's gonna get the stoppage inside the distance.
Yeah, there you go. So, stack card, matchroom boxing. Also, Rocky Ogden's on the card as well. He's obviously fought in Eternal. He's a former Muay Thai fighter, trains with... I actually don't think he does train with John Wayne Parr anymore, does he? But
NTG.
NTG, yeah. I got corrected on this last time. I've mentioned
Fuck's sake, Dan.
him as a Boonshoe fighter. So did not learn the lesson there, but from NTG. So interesting to see. He's got having his third fight in boxing for the Australian Super Featherweight title. So see how he goes there as well.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see how that plays out and see if he steps back into MMA after that.
Yeah, who knows? Like he's kind of spreading his options there. So I'll see where he settles. But obviously the guy just likes to fight. So good luck to him.
Yeah, it'll be cool to watch. I want to be tuned in for sure.
Definitely, you and me both. But also after that, this weekend on Sunday down here in Melbourne, we've got Haney versus Kambosos 2. I think it's at Rod Laver Arena here in Melbourne. So that one should be it should be pretty fun. Obviously the rematch, Haney versus Kambosos. They just fought a few months ago. It was a pretty one-sided fight in the end, if we're being fair. But it was the IBF, WBC, WBA, and WBO lightweight titles on the line. So all the chockies. Do you see this one going any different the second time around?
I feel like Kambosos is telling us that it's going to be different. He's approaching it like he's, just the man on the grind again, chasing it. So hopefully we see the Kambosos, George Kambosos come in like the guy that walked in there and got his way to fighting for all the chockies against Teofimo Lopez, and we see that sort of caliber of performance come out of him. But Haney's so fucking good, man. He's so good. And from range, he's just, we saw it in the first fight. He's just filthy. Just was leaning at will. So I feel like, it's got to be a dog fight. And then we got to see like Kambosos bring the mongrel out to be able to come and get those belts back. But it's not impossible, but it's a tough task. And especially in a rematch type deal, it was going to be a tough task to beat someone like, for either guy to beat each other the first time they fought. But Haney seems like he's one of those people too that would just he made all his reads in the first fight, and he's going to be like a supercomputer in there and just downloading all the data in the first couple of rounds, and then he's just going to find his way to piece you up again. So Kambosos really has to sort of be onto it early and aggressive, and I think his best chance to win this fight is going to be in the early rounds, because as it keeps going, I think it's just going to get rougher for him.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup, and fair play to Kambosos for taking it a second time. He obviously wants those belts back. They had the rematch clause there and stuff, but this is a tough guy to beat. Like you said, Devin Haney, he's this is the cream of the crop really in the lightweight division. Fantastically skilled fighter, and we saw we were talking about this earlier today. Kambosos has sort of mentioned that the Emperor is gone and Ferocious Kambosos is coming back, and like you say, that's what he needs to do. He needs to make this a dogfight, and that's really what he needed to do in the first fight. And he sort of chose to try and box with Haney, which is a tough go. So it'd be interesting to see if he can kind of just walk forward, make it ugly, and just try and mug Haney for those belts, really.
Yeah, just get out there and fucking bash him. Just trying to hit him and break his face with every punch. That's the sort of the approach I take, because at the moment, outside of, I think pretty much, the only matchup at the moment for Haney where it's like, I kind of think it's a rough day in the office for him, it'd be Lomachenko. I look at that fight and I go, okay, fuck that.
How good is that on paper though? Like, I don't know,
that'd be a great fight.
Yeah, there's a part of me that really wants Haney to win, just so Lomachenko, is the next opponent. I think Lomachenko's got a fight in the interim, but I think if he wins, I think he's it's like a title eliminator. So I think it's Haney and Lomachenko next.
Well, I think looking at it on paper, I think Lomachenko is an easier fight for Kambosos to do his best work in than Haney, because Lomachenko doesn't mind trying to come to where you're good and fighting you where you're good, just to show you that he can beat you there. And obviously, the opportunity to do that against someone like Kambosos, and, you cop some of them punches, you can get put away. Obviously, they're telling us that when Lomachenko fought Lopez, he's had like a shoulder issue and stuff like that. But you saw Lopez able to capitalize on that early. Lomachenko tried to fight him sort of where he was good, and he was getting beat up a bit. As the rounds went on, we saw Lomachenko do some good work. But yeah, it's just going to be like, he's just one of those guys where he can just beat fucking almost anyone and make him look silly if he just fights how he's meant to fight. But he doesn't mind, throwing himself into the fire and taking the risk to try and beat you, just to show you that he can beat you where you're meant to be skilled. Which as a fan of boxing and as a fan of fighting, I look at that and I go, that's fucking sick. Like, I love when people do shit like that. But as someone who fights and that, I just look at that and I go, that's just fucking stupid. Like, just fight how you fight. Like, be the guy. And it's the same now for Kambosos. It's like, don't get a few belts and then change the way you fight. Like, just do it. Got you to the fucking dance.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's kind of I don't know. I guess in a sporting sense, it's ridiculous, isn't it, to fight someone in their own at their own game? But some people, Lomachenko, just I guess he values sort of the legacy and sort of that that feather in the cap over just winning the fight. Like, sometimes he could do it a lot easier. So that'll be a fun one if it comes to fruition. But in the co-main event, they've got Shanika Johnson, the IBF Super Bantamweight champion of the world. She obviously won her title in the undercard of Zarafa versus Hardman. Yep, and if you recall, we were breaking down that fight and forgot her name. I had to Google it during the podcast. So so I made sure to remember this time around and cover her off, because it's a good fight. She's taking on Susie Ramadan, who's got 32 fights on her record. She's 43 years old, but she's a former world title challenger. So it'd be interesting to see if Shanika can retain.
Fuck, I love this, man. I love it just in boxing. Like, you just find that more than often than not. Than in MMA, you just have like older people just getting out here and still scrapping. So yeah, I'm on board. I want to see this fight. I reckon it's gonna be a scrap. That seems to translate across all combat sports. Like, the women's fights seem to just be violence filled from start to finish, and that's what I'm about.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the Maloney brothers on the card. They've I guess Jason Maloney's got a WBC bantamweight title eliminator. So not actually a belt on the line. It's probably one of the few fights on the card which doesn't actually. So there might be a belt, who knows? But but it is just a title eliminator. He's taking on Nawafon Karkanya. Now Nawapon's got a 56 1-1 record, which looks formidable, right? But he's fought his entire career in Thailand, so we've got some alarm bells. Right? we've seen a few fighters come out with records like that from Thailand, and yeah, it's a mixed bag. So yeah, we'll see how he goes. But,
He's got that.
Yeah,
He's got one of them Polonia records.
Something like that. Yeah. So, but anyway, it's an opportunity for Jason Maloney. He's 24-2 now to get another crack at a world title. So yeah, what do you reckon of Jason Maloney?
Yeah, obviously it's pretty weird that, the guy's just like his opponent. I've got to a bit sus on that, but I feel like Maloney's just gonna grind out a win. I feel like he'll box his way to a pretty good decision.
Yeah, I imagine so. And his brother's got Nobelto Jimenez, who's got a 31-9-6 record. This time the WBC international title on the record on the line here. So not the intercontinental title, but the international title. So I don't really know what the difference is. I don't know why both of those titles exist. I assume an international title gets into the top 15 as well. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But there's an international title, which is pretty cool. It'll look cool in photos and on Instagram and stuff. So, anyway, it's a fun fight. It's a fun fight, and and another opportunity for Andrew to push towards another world title fight.
Yeah, I think Andrew will go out there and do the same thing. It'll just some good boxing. We'll just see him box his way to a decision. But fuck, we're gonna have to get someone from boxing like on the show, and they can break down all this shit for us, all these titles, and tell us what they mean because. I have no idea what any of that means. Or to my it's like so and so is fighting so and so, and then it's just a bunch of words, and it's just like okay,
just a bunch of belts. I don't know how much.
Fight a boxing promotion. I just have the best names for my belts. I'd be like the super intercontinental, state of the art, world global
silver
flat earth title. Yeah, something I don't know.
Platinum. Yeah, with an interim as well. Yeah,
yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, they're all interim.
They're all interims. Yeah, yeah. I don't know how they figured it out. I was actually thinking that earlier today. We should have gotten someone from the boxing world on for this episode to sort of clear up some of these things because we can kind of laugh about all these belts and stuff, but there might be some significance to them. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
we're just ragging on their sport, and there's like some serious thought process that goes behind it.
Yeah, some sort of formula, some sort of algorithm. You combine a couple of belts and it gets you a number 4 ranking or something. Or I don't know. Yeah, some sort of point system. But
I like how this whole time we're just like you're like, yeah, I think this belt gets you a world ranking, and then like, God forbid, some of these people are just like listening to this and they're like, fuck, man, I'm gonna get a world ranking up this top 15, and then none of them get it.
Yeah. Why am I still ranked number 65? What is? I've got an intercontinental title.
Dan said I was going to be top 15. What the fuck?
Yeah, I heard on a podcast I was going to get the big boss next time, but no, here I am. I'm still ranked number 65. And people come into this podcast for some real sort of information and analysis, and here we are just bloody tripping over ourselves trying to figure out what all these belts mean. So apologies to all the people out there that were looking for some real insight on that, but maybe we'll do some research and come back to it next week. But who the fuck knows? I don't know. I think it's a money spinner really for the sanctioning bodies. They get a little lick of the ice cream when one of their belts is on the line. So really, it's in their interest to make as many belts as they possibly can, right? Because they get a sanctioning fee for putting a belt on someone, and yeah, and the fighters get a ranking or a cool photo for Instagram or whatever they get. So it works out for them too, right?
Yeah, I suppose you're right. And the more of these international titles you get, you could. Yeah, like you said, you could take a dope photo. That standard photo that everyone does where they held all the belts like this and all like this.
Yeah.
Fuck off. Although the one that Isaac Hardman's got where he's holding all his belts, like that's pretty sick. And he's a fucking mad cunt. I like Isaac. He just knocks people out. So we gotta like that dude. He's gonna be a dad. He's expecting his first child. So shout out to Isaac Hardman. He is getting ready to be a dad.
Absolutely, yeah, he's joining the ranks of the dads. So obviously, we have a growing affinity for him now. We love to see the dads going out there and doing work. So yeah, that's cool.
let's get him the rematch with Zarafa. Fucking, he got lucky the first time. No, I'm joking. But yeah, no, I want to see some. I want to see what Isaac's going to do next as well. So that's another person, that's sort of high up in Australian boxing, and that we kind of want to see progress. Or yeah, potentially, I think he was talking about doing having an MMA fight just to sort of fill time. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, see what he's got. Do you reckon there's a belt in boxing for dads? Is it like I don't know.
It should be.
Probably.
If we're doing all these other belts, we should have like an international dad championship, and then you just fucking whoever holds it, you just got to fight him regardless of weight class.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that's that. That's boxing. Matchroom boxing on Saturday night, and Kambosos versus Haney on Sunday. I think it's Sunday during the day actually for the American prime time. So sort of check all your local listings for where to watch those. But we've got a couple of fan questions, or at least one fan question. We'll see how long it takes to get through it. But thought we might touch on, just because you sort of mentioned there, the women's fights have been real scraps, in boxing. But we had a question a few weeks ago from Gabe Venn. So thank you to Gabe for listening and for sending through the question. He asks, why do women's fights seem more exciting in general than men's fights?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, there's a couple of things from my perspective that I think factor in. First one being, obviously, women's MMA as a whole is, a relatively fresh creation in a relatively fresh sport, because MMA is obviously, hasn't been around that long compared to sort of other sport, and hasn't been in the top sort of spotlight like it is now on ESPN and stuff like that for as long as some of these other sports. And then obviously, the fact that you go from Dana White, who's the president of the biggest promotion in the world, saying women will never fight in the UFC, to all of a sudden women fight in the UFC. And now we have established divisions, and established champions that are fighting and performing at a top level, like Shevchenko, Nunes, et cetera, Cyborg, people like that. So you're kind of I think women, are inherently going to approach any sport with the mentality of, I don't have the same, I guess, audience privilege that people are going to tune in regardless. So I have to go out there and just put it all in. And they have kind of I think any woman that competes in any sport, but especially combat sport, has that sort of chip on their shoulder. So I feel like that's why you see that. You see women's fights get put together, and they just get out there and scrap, and they just put it all on the line, and no one's ever trying to play it safe unless they're Rose Namajunas and Carla Esparza. That was fucking ridiculous. But outside of that, and even those two women, every other fight they've been in has been highly entertaining. So, and they've either been in an absolute scrap or they've gotten some crazy big finishes. But even look at a recent fight to sort of go off. You could look at outside of Nunes and Pena too. That was, obviously a great example, because that was a championship fight, and Nunes was able to win her belt back, and it was an absolute just insane fight. And, it was one of those, it was bloody and it was violent and it was just cool to watch. But look at a fight obviously last week we had Cam O'Neill on, his daughter Casey O'Neill fights in the UFC. Look at her last fight, she fought Roxanne Modafferi, and everyone that was kind of obviously she went out there and killed it, set some records in the fight and put some hands on, but it wasn't just a straight, one-sided beating without some repercussions. Roxanne got into it and scrapped. A lot of people expected her to try and grapple, and she just went in there and threw punches and was just trying to put it all on the line, made for a very exciting fight. Obviously Casey killed it, got the win. As I said, set some striking records and stuff like that for a strawweight 3-round fight. But that only happens because both women showed up and just got after it. You know what I mean? So these fights are always going to, just for my money, if there's a women's fight on a card, I'm tuning in. And if you look, that's across the board from a regional level to the top level. Look at regionally. If you look at someone like Jamie Eden, and I don't think she's been in a boring fight. All her fights have seemed to be just scraps. And that fight on Eternal with Gina G on 69, that was they just got out there and scrapped. They were just throwing bombs at each other. So, had me entertained, had everyone else entertained. So, yeah, if there's a women's fight on a card, I'm definitely tuning in. And I for sure think that more often than not, they're probably some of my favorite fights on the card.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also, I guess, like women's MMA is perhaps With all due respect, it's a little bit behind sort of men's MMA in terms of like participation and those sorts of things. Like, you know, obviously the UFC only adopted women's MMA in I think about 10 years ago now. So you know, it's obviously the fighters at the top of the game, like Valentina and Amanda Nunes and all those sorts of people are you know, top notch skill wise. But I think in terms of as it sort of filters down the ranks, you know, the participation numbers are still growing, and those sorts of prospects like Casey O'Neill and those sorts of fighters are still kind of bubbling to the top. So I think you sort of find with I guess lower level fights, perhaps for the lack of a better term, you know, where the sort of the fighters skill wise are maybe a little bit rough around the edges, they can be really entertaining, right? Sometimes you watch Bellator like undercard fights, or even one championship to a degree, you know, where the fighters aren't as polished perhaps as some of the top level UFC fighters, and they don't have these stalemates because their skills aren't quite, they don't sort of cancel each other out as much. They don't maybe defend as well, so you see like position reversals and, you know, sort of back and forth, you know, sort of striking battles. So sometimes that can be like more entertaining to watch, and the same could be said for, you know, fights on the local scene in general. You know, they're sort of not quite at that sort of world level yet. They're fighters that are building themselves up so they can be kind of back and forth wars. So I think that's sort of partially why it might sort of appear that you know, women's fights are generally really exciting, because they're fights to look forward to now, which is a crazy turn of events, really. Like,
Yeah.
in the early days in the UFC, you would sort of, I don't know, you would kind of consider a women's fight, and this is going to sound kind of bad, but you would consider it as an opportunity to sort of maybe go to the toilet, go to the bar or whatever. But nowadays, you don't want to miss them, because they're fun to watch. So yeah, it's cool to see the evolution of the sport that way.
Yeah, and it's I don't know, it's like one of those things where it's just going to keep growing, keep building. We're not going to, it's not going to be one of those things that you see. It's not like it's going to get to a certain point and then just stop, like it is still early on and is still playing catch up. Like the example I like to use too is, if you think about, you look at sort of sport, all the other sport that there is that have been a bit more established and stuff like that, you know, you like tennis, right? If you're watching Serena Williams play tennis and you're watching Rafa Nadal or Roger Federer or someone like that play, like, yeah, there's going to be like a bit of a difference in skill level, but you're tuning into both going, holy fuck, this is insane. And you're watching like a top level athlete dominate and just destroy people, you know. And if you go to like another sport, you're going to see the same thing. You go to athletics, you're going to see the same things. Whereas in MMA, as you said, it's not to that point yet where across the board there's like a top level athlete that's just dominating all their competition. I mean, obviously outside of Shevchenko and Nunes, it's competitive, and these people are just like getting in there and scrapping. Eventually, it probably will get to that point where you'll see it more consistently across the weight divisions. You'll see like that one person that sticks out and it's just decimating people, and we're sitting here going, what the fuck? Who's going to beat this person? And that's why the strawweight division's so fun too, I think. And that's why, like the other day when I saw something that Casey O'Neill said she might drop down and fight a strawweight, which she did, like in most of her regional fights, she fought a strawweight. And, you know, that could be exciting because there's some cracking matchups there. You got people like Rose Namajunas, Zhang Weili, people like that, you know, in that division. So, yeah, I think it's going to just continue with that arc that it's on now, just continue to just improve, and we're going to keep seeing that. But for my money right now, yeah, like I said, if anytime regional fight cards, international fight cards, it doesn't matter if there's a women's fight on the card, I'm going to be watching it for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's kind of the kind of must-see viewing, really, aren't they? And does it feel like in a way that, like, I don't know, maybe you kind of touched on how sort of, you know, female fighters, they come together and they just scrap, you know. Does it feel like maybe they've got sort of something to prove? They've got a bit of a chip on their shoulder for, you know, from the early days when sort of Dana White said, we will never have, you know, women's fights in the UFC. Is there something to prove? Do you reckon there's an element of that?
100%. I think every woman that's involved in every sport, but especially combat sport, for sure they've got someone in their comments. For sure they got someone in their DMs. For sure they got a family member, a friend, or someone that's telling them, oh, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that, or you don't, you know, this just isn't something that a woman should be doing, blah, 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 blah. So 100%, I don't think there's a woman competing in combat sport that doesn't have that and, you know, doesn't have to deal with sort of that sort of bullshit. So I feel like, yeah, for sure. And that's why you're seeing that. And that's why at every opportunity, I'm going to continue to watch these fights and, you know, support these athletes, and then just across the board keep hyping them up, because I think it's warranted and just, you know, it's deserved at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and obviously at every opportunity you should be tuning in to watch Fight Talk Down Under as well. We'll have episode 32 next week, so that's a great place to start or to continue on that journey. So episode 32, we'll be recapping all the fights we've just covered. We'll be answering some more fan questions. Keep your eyes peeled to Fight News Australia YouTube. I've just interviewed Reese McLaren and Minnie T Williams on the weekend. So Reese is in action on October 21st. Minnie T is on action on October 22nd. Both of them in one championship. Otherwise, let us know if you have any questions. Details are below. Dan Meehan MMA on Twitter, or Lockjaw MMA on Instagram. Give us a follow on our Instagram page at Fight Talk Down Under, and don't forget to like and subscribe. YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Fight News Australia, and iHeartRadio. Lockjaw, what do you want to take us off with?
Yeah, obviously, yeah. Subscribe, like Dan said, get on board, keep following the podcast. We're doing big things. We're on our 32nd episode next week, so it's all happening. Obviously, CMBT, Nut Care, that sort of shit that we covered at the start. Support our sponsors, and if anyone else wants to sponsor us, any whiskey companies want to get on board, get us some whiskey. We're not going to say no. Obviously, December 2nd, if you're in the Gold Coast, make sure to get your tickets and come to Channel 72. If you're in Perth, at the end of this month, head to fucking Eternal 71 and watch, some cracker fights in a cracker venue. And that's pretty much it. It's all happening. But more fights, more combat sports happening, more banter. It's all, I'm sure it's going to continue to carry on.
I gotta watch it. You never know what might stop you. Here I am.